This insurance. Oh, all right. There I am. I'm going to try to speak up tonight. Good evening. Welcome to the December 11th edition of the Communication Committee. Let's start off by calling the roll. Hi, I'm here. And John is here. And Liam is here. Allison is here. And we hope that Scott will be here. But we're going to start on time, especially for all of you folks who are sitting at home watching this. Okay, public comment. Anybody out there? No. That said, I'm going to close public comment, and it appears on my agenda twice, so if somebody should pop up, we'll give them a chance to say hello. Approval of the minutes of September 11, 24, October 9, 24. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, and I guess all in favor. So there we go. Okay, so we'll get right into the first order of business here. Counselor Corner themes and assignments. And somewhere I had a note for myself, but generally I thought that what we've done in the past was sort of go 1 week at a time or a couple of weeks at a time. And I thought that maybe we could combine a couple of ideas around thematic communication. And so we could pick a broad area. And then we could look at topics within that area and assign them. I believe it's a 14-week cycle pretty much. If we go every other week, and there are 7 counselors. So if we said, here's the general topic of conversation, here are the subheads, distribute them out to the council members and say, please pick one and pick a date. I don't believe that it's necessary that there's any particular order to these things. And then we could sort of say, we've chunked that out, and then we could return to, we won't have to take up time at these meetings. So, making sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the topic wouldn't necessarily be based on what's coming up right then. It's more of an educational opportunity.
Well, yeah, you know, I think it's interesting to me that, I mean, the topic that comes to my mind, and I think I just had this piece, if you can press those down, and here's one through the. This was an example of saying that it feels to me like we bump into this growth word every time we turn around. And so to your question about the order of things, what we're talking about, you know, we have a transportation study that we're going to need to turn into some kind of a strategy. And there are all kinds of growth related issues around transportation. I think that it would be useful to have a topic where we just define the terms. We've probably done some of this before, but I don't think it hurts to repeat it. As to what has growth looked like, which direction is it heading, what things have we already done, what seems to be working and what isn't. So I mean, I don't want to tell you guys what should be on the list. I'm sort of, you could say, now let's put a different subject heading at the top. I'm just kind of throwing it out.
I do like the idea, like it's really resonated with me lately with when we hear sometimes from the public, you know, concerns about the downs. And, you know, I think the town is actually doing a really remarkable job as it relates to growth management. And I feel like maybe having a theme, and it might be a full year theme, not just a couple cycle theme of, we want, our objective for this year is to make sure we use Counselor Corner as a vehicle to communicate all the great things the town is doing around growth management.
Right.
And I think to your point, the first thing is like, you know, I always say, oh, I think we're doing smart growth. Like, what is smart growth? What does that mean? What are the tenets of it?
Right.
And then somebody could highlight the transportation study, to your point, as like something that's happening, the vulnerability assessment. Like everything we do, in my opinion, can somehow tie back to growth.
Growth and the way the community is changing,
Yeah.
you know, looking at how our demographics have changed over time.
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't know if any of you have been in Massachusetts recently, but you drive out through little towns like Medfield and Hingham and so forth, and you see, you know.
Nice
Thanks,
stuff.
Scott. Yeah. You see, houses that look like they were once on residential streets across from high-rise things and little stores and so forth. You know, it doesn't look like there was any rhyme or reason to it. We were talking about growth. And Scott, I'll just quickly bring you up to speed that we have articles in the Leader. They give us the council corner, probably read every other week, pretty much. Yeah. And so in the past, what we've done at these meetings is we've said, well, what are we going to talk about in the next one? And we've had some conversation. Somebody either volunteers or gets assigned.
Yeah.
And then they write about it. And this time, what I was hoping to do is to say, let's have a broad conversation about, and in this case, we're using growth as an example. And then let's take the 7 opportunities that we have through one cycle over 14 weeks to talk about to the public things that the town has done to manage growth, what the results of that have been, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're thinking.
Yeah.
So, so you were saying,
So I was just saying, you know, even to your point of like, I think there's so much on our agenda all the time. But if growth is the umbrella and how we're talking about stuff, I think getting counselors to always, you know, point back to whatever the key messages are around growth. Like that's where, again, I think to me, it would be great for the public to, like, what I would love to hear from the public is, I better understand what the town is doing to manage growth and see and understand the things that are happening to make that happen. Because again, I think of the transportation study as one element. The vulnerability assessment, I could link that to growth by saying, as we grow, it creates vulnerabilities, it like impacts climate change, and so we have to do this. I think of like even the wetland setback, like that is something tied into growth where we're trying to protect our natural resources. So I think growth could be the umbrella through which we're talking about things and making sure that we're linking it back to the smart things the town is doing to really try and mitigate the impacts of growth as best we can. I think to your point, you know, we can't stop it, but we can manage it and we can put things in place to try and control it. And I think we know a lot of that because we are here, but the public doesn't always know what's happening. And so, I mean, I just like that I like your concept of if we can get a theme, growth seems like an easy theme to wrap around. After that, I'm not sure. I can't think of like other themes right now off the top of my head. The school could be a theme as it progresses, where maybe there's more emphasis on the school stuff down the road.
well, you know, I think that growth is the right place to start because it's a word that is already in the mind of the public, and it's sometimes an okay idea to meet people where they're at with what they're thinking and help bring them along to say, well, here are the dimensions of it. It feels to me sometimes like we're sticking the finger in the, you know, in the balloon that pops out someplace else. But remember, we have, I don't know how many 14-week cycles. I'm not a math wizard, so we could decide at the end of 14 weeks that we're going to pick another thing. And one that comes to my mind just in this moment is, this, I hate to call them social services because I think that has not the connotation that I mean. But we educate our kids, we take care of our elders in some way, we take care of the less fortunate among us. So when we talk about what are we doing about growth, or what do we do for the growth and development and enhancement of the lives of people here? And I think there's a lot of that stuff going on, but I could imagine that coming up as being a secondary theme. Although I haven't really thought much about it. But
Another suggestion could be if you look at our comprehensive plan. We have 5 vision statements. And it's not growth specifically, but there's one that I think aligns to growth. And we could say this year could be around leveraging those 5 vision statements as thematic things that we could try and make sure we're writing appropriate articles and linking them back to the comprehensive plan. So there's something about conservation, there's something that I would classify as growth. Preserving the character of our existing neighborhoods, which is kind of growth. The economy and transportation. I just looked on the website on the main thing where we have the 5 visions. And so you could say, let's write articles about, like, take each vision. And you could say, try and focus on something that's relevant happening now. Or happening this year that we want to point to that says, here's how we're actually executing that vision.
so would you say using those 5 as being the overriding topics and then drilling down on them?
Potentially.
Potentially. Yeah, I'd be fine with that, because I think it comes back to work.
If you go back up, or keep going,
That's right.
yeah, you had it, you scrolled past it, if you go back up, or that way. Yeah. Keep going.
I should
Keep
say, as
going.
long as growth is one of those.
Yeah,
topics,
it's actually in there, but,
Oh.
oh wait, it's the
Uh,
14, looks like page 14, maybe?
Yeah, that's right.
Community vision.
Yeah.
Page 14.
Overall, though, I like this approach. I think it'll be good for the newsletter too, because
There, those are the 5 vision statements.
because I'm providing updates on each of like the projects or different items, and so there's not really the opportunity to like dive deeper, and so that would be a good place for counselors to be able to like not repeat back the message, but instead offer a different angle of looking at what we're talking about.
So would it make sense, just in terms of efficiency, to say broadly that we will use the vision statements as our overarching themes and try to work through all 5 of them this year?
Yeah.
With topics underneath. Okay, and that we need to pick one tonight. And then what we would need to do is figure out how to flesh out some topics. And my thought would be that I would send out a note to the council that says, this is what our intent is. And these are what we think the topics are for this first phase. And if you have any that you want to suggest, speak now or for a piece. And then, we'll finalize it when we do our committee reports.
What might be a good link to this is once we have our council goals, my hypothesis is that a lot of them might be categorized in these too. As like subtopics, so I think we should try and get like up and running for like the first few, to your point, like just to get going and have a plan.
Yeah.
But once we have goals come February, that's where we can kind of revisit this to say, if those are our goals, those should also be what we're communicating, but if we can do it through the lens of these are our kind of focus areas, then that can kind of help to build the calendar, I guess, for the year.
So if I go back to my personal approach to goal setting,
Mhm.
it's to have an overarching thing you're trying to do, mission, vision, soft fuzzies in the room, wear the paper hats, put a lot of stuff on the board. I bet you haven't sat through a lot of those, and that's good. But then where the rubber meets the road is what I think of as key results areas.
Mhm.
These could be key results areas.
Mhm.
And then under that, you formulate short-term achievable things, measurable things that you're going to focus on in each one of those areas. So I refer to them as key results areas. So we just flipped into sort of a different topic here, but as I sent April's my notes on how to go about goal setting, and then I had nothing to do for a few minutes Sunday morning, and I started making these little bubbles, and I hadn't intended to share this with anybody, but essentially some of the key results areas I was looking at would be growth management, affordable housing, education, schools, library, children, adults, community services, transportation, and the like. So the trick would be to organize some. So these would be the warm and fuzzies in the vision statement. And under that, what we would need to endeavor to do is to organize some key results areas under those, which would also translate into topics for the council. That's a little more than I thought we'd do tonight, but question is, how do we go from that list to tangible key result areas, which I think and should come from all of us. And my thought about goal setting was that in our pre-work for goal setting, we would propose some key result settings. So Scott, you might be thinking, all right, when I think of overarching goals and the things that are in my wheelhouse, I might say, what do we want to accomplish with the beaches, with those kinds of things? Essentially, it's not defining exactly what we want to accomplish, but it's saying we want to accomplish something consistent with these goals in the heart. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, my concept is real basic. It's
Okay.
like, we have these meetings and we have these committees. And everybody's on a committee and everybody's trying to fix everything. Everybody's trying to do, and what can we do? What can we do with the town? And it's like, these committees, what come out of these committees was the Beach Ridge Speedway. There was a whole thing done by the last council, so a huge thing to say what they wanted up there and how they wanted it, and they wanted it commercial, and they had a buffer for the houses that are up there, and they got it all set up. And now we're coming and saying, the new council and saying, well, no, I guess we don't want to do that. You know, so it's like, we just keep spinning our wheels. You guys are rehashing stuff that's been hashed over already. And I mean, committees and setting these goals and stuff is how we come up, how did we come up with having houses right on top of one another on the old Easton? And I mean, roads, you can't even fit a snowplow down. I mean, the town was very adamant, very strict about 100-foot right of ways. You have to have 100-foot right of way. You can't do anything unless you have 100-foot right of way. And then the developers get in and somehow through committees and these round tables in the room, you know, the councils decided, let's do this. And it happened, you know, and for the developers, it worked out very well. You know, for me, way back, this goes way back, you know, I was on the sanitary district board. And the reason I got on that was because I grew up in Green Acres, right here by the animal hospital, you know, that it made.
That's where I live now.
And, you know, and that neighborhood was getting older
Mhm.
and everybody needed new septic systems. So they started, the town kept saying, we're gonna sewer, we're gonna sewer. They had a sewer line underneath the interstate spur from way back in the seventies when that was built. And then developers got on the board with the federal government gave a grant for the sanitary district to build the new plant. The old plant was town money, people, the taxpayers paid to most of the original plant, a little small one we had on the old Eastern. But then they got a big grant, and what they did was they said, okay, everything that side of Route 1 is the capacity for that plant. And it's like how it should have been done was every house in Scarborough in this area that it can service is already in for that plant. Any new development has to pay an expansion fee. So that's when we got up and up, or Judy Roy got on the council then because she was on that, taxpayers coalition and whatever. So that's where it come down to was, there's basically these things happen. And I don't know how you can control it from
Yeah.
happening.
Well, just to kind of bring us back to the council corner and the agenda, like, again, I feel like the comprehensive plan is kind of like supposed to be our guide for where we're going as a community based on all the public input and feedback we got for it. So I feel like using this as a guide and trying it, maybe we try it for now and wait until the goals are completed to then say, how do we want to revisit the approach? But at least for now, these feel like 5 reasonable areas to say, we're starting here. Maybe we pick one. I think bullet 2 and bullet 3 are both, in my opinion, growth related. Where again, there could be topics that could be chosen, or maybe we don't create the topics, we just tell counselors we'd like to focus on this vision statement, who's interested in writing something over the next 3 periods until we have our goals and can be a little bit more deliberate on what we want to do. The other piece too, like I would say is like, if there's anything really pressing that someone wants to write about that doesn't fall under this, but they're like really passionate, like Scott, if you want to write what you just talked about and say, I'd really like time just to write about
Right, yeah.
this and share my perspective, which again, even what you just said
Find
fits
something.
into this because
Right.
like
Right.
the bullet 2 and 3, what I heard you say was, it's all about like the things we're trying to do, and sometimes we don't get it right, and
Right.
sometimes we need to own it.
Yeah.
And really, but the truth is we're trying to do it right, and we won't always get it right. So again, I think these feel like a good place for us to try something different and start, and then maybe potentially build out that framework that you're talking about once we have our goals to really kind of be a little bit more planful for the rest of the year.
I wanted to underscore some of what you say, that the history of this town is important for people who've lived here for a long period of time. And I'm not sure how it leads into this, but a thing that concerns me is, if you put a group of beavers in the forest, they're gonna go out there and shoot it down, because that's what they do. If you put a group of lawmakers in the room, they'll make laws.
Right.
And I worry a little bit about that there are many ways to skin these cats, but I think I'm trying to figure out how to put a bow on this and turn this into something that I believe creates a framework, makes some suggestions to people about how this group thinks what fits into that framework, and asking ideally for alternatives that fit into the framework for Freelands. Because the flip of that is to say, if this is clearly, to my mind, have to be a strong suggestion. This is what being part of the club means, without infringing on anybody's independence or freedom. Because the alternative is just to say, here's 7 dates. Pick a topic and write on it.
Mhm.
And I don't know. My intent, the intent of this to me is not to persuade anybody necessarily one way or the other, but to help people at least understand what it is happening here. In fact, which may generate objections once they understand that. There might be some people say, well, geez, now I understand this, it seemed like a good idea on paper, but doesn't strike me that we ought to be, the more I understand, the more I object. I should. Well, it's some, not always, I think that that's the case. So,
My suggestion maybe to just. Like what we can do to, again, to start is. If you want to communicate to the council to say we want to leverage these vision statements. As our focus, maybe we pick one to start for you to field. Interest, but also. Areas of focus that people are passionate to write about. And then that kind of then sets the schedule of, okay, Karen. You like that topic, you're gonna write this time, then this person's
Yeah.
doing this, and that way at least we get going, and then. Again, I go back to, once we have goals, we can kind of look at it again and say. Do these give us that?
Yeah.
You know. Pathway framework that we can say, now we have something that we can. Have people fill in the boxes later and make sure that we have like a. Full calendar year, but also to your point. If anybody ever comes forward and says, well, I'd really like the spot to write about something that's really relevant right now, like I don't have a problem if somebody wants to do that.
so I think that this time I will assign myself the task of putting this out conceptually.
Mhm.
Maybe generating some ideas and circulating it to you, the feedback, and then once I've seen what each of you have to say about it, then we'll circulate it to the rest of the group.
Mhm.
So I think I have a picture in my head of what we're kind of doing here.
Okay.
Okay,
Again, I don't think it should be all on our shoulders. There's big decisions to make.
Mhm.
And I think the people should be making these decisions.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these big decisions should be just wait until the November election and everything should go to referendum.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, ask the people what they want. We ain't gonna make a decision. It's like, we're gonna lay it all out.
Yeah.
And this is what we're thinking.
Mhm.
This is what we think we wanna do. But then the people get up in an uproar. What are you doing? You know, we don't want that.
Yeah.
So it's like, so don't do it.
Are
Don't
you talking
knee jerk and
More
do
about capital, or are you talking more about?
everything. Everything. I mean, there is some issues that will come up. I guess we're gonna have to make a decision on, because you've got people that are coming and, they're waiting on, jobs to do or whatever.
Mhm.
But
I think that's a really, like, what we struggle with a little bit, to your point, though, Scott, is like. The way the public process is set up is. So people can participate, because we have committees, we have
right,
council committees,
right,
we have the
right.
council.
but nobody.
So how do we-
Nobody bothers with that. It's the
So,
problem.
right.
That's
I
the
think
problem.
getting your,
You have a few people.
Yeah. but getting your gut on like. Guys, I think this is a big one, like, let's slow it down and let's
Yeah.
communicate. We were talking earlier in leadership about, some stuff that was on the potential next agenda. And my feedback was, if we can communicate a little bit more before we take it up, just because I think once we take it up. Then the process starts and we have to like follow the process. But if we can give more communication to the public, let them stew on it. So that way they can actually engage, because once they know something's coming on our agenda, to your point, like. If we put it on the agenda first. Right, and they hear about it and that's the first time they pay attention. Then they're like, what are you guys doing? But if we can say, hey, this is coming on the agenda, we want you to know, because.
Yeah.
We don't really have opinions, we want you guys to tell us. We can use this as a means to kind of.
And that's a key point, John, which I want to come back to, or I want to start responding to your concern here. And that is that, the town moved to town government. I wasn't paying attention, they moved to this council, they moved away from town hall, everybody decided.
Right, right, many,
So,
many years.
Many,
ago.
many years
Yeah.
ago. So now we're in a situation where I think that's where this committee has the potential to be influential and to respond to that by saying, look, you know, we don't expect you to come here every night, but at least you can pick up this thing that ends up in your mailbox one day. And if you take 5 minutes to read it, you might understand which direction we're going. Right. And coming back to your point, John, yes, I can say this for the campers, but I was so frustrated with not the work and the content of the transportation study thing, but with the fact that I've got 175-page document, which it's my job to read. And then I'd rather sit in that room and ask people questions. But instead, our workshop format, and this is a communication issue, is to sit there and listen to presentations for all but 15 minutes. And then all it takes is one long-winded answer and the question is on. My point is that we could get at a lot of what you're saying by having a smaller agenda of things that need to get done and workshops in which we talk to each other under the eye of the public, where we're not trying to pass this or that, but we're saying, well, let's talk about where are we at with this particular segment and what are the committees telling us in this that? Maybe I'm being idealistic here, but you're right. Once it gets in the first reading, and all of a sudden we've got this clock ticking.
Yeah.
And now we gotta slow the process. That gets people's attention, which is not a bad thing, but now we gotta slow the process down, make sure we get people engaged. So I just make that.
Yeah.
And say,
Well, that usually the workshops are intended to like be a place of concept or idea coming forward before it's ready for prime time. And I would say the transportation committee kind of falls in that bucket. It was just a lot to take in, like you could
Yeah.
do it in less than a hour and 15 minutes, unfortunately, because it's so dense with a lot of good stuff. So again, I think that was a good example, in my opinion, of using the council forum, because that's where people tend to ultimately go to for information.
sure,
To get prime time, because if they went and did something separate, people are less likely to watch it because they don't tend to go to. They will go to other forums, but they won't, like the council meeting that's on our agenda tends to be what most people think is like the business of the town. So I think to your point, we just gotta figure out like, how do we, when do you use a workshop as a means and.
or in that case, and we're gonna come back 2 weeks from now.
Mhm.
And we're gonna sit now that you've all had a chance to digest this and hear it. And we're gonna do another workshop where we just talk about this.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, it's just expending the time.
Mhm.
So I take your point that just the pure information sharing is necessary. Maybe that's the only way to get it. So it gets a big sense, but it feels to me like when we're on the dais, we are, we're legislating, we're not communicating,
Mhm.
we're, you know, trying to move something through.
Mhm.
Anybody? Yes,
So, just to maybe go back to the proposal, I think it's a great idea to, if we're looking at a thematic approach to communication, trying to start or have things fall under the umbrella of the vision statements outlined in the comprehensive plan. I think there's a real lack of awareness of the comprehensive plan with the general public. I think that over the last few years, the council's done a really nice job trying to bring some prominence to it. But this is effectively the guiding document for this community. And I mean, these are nebulous enough so that I think an opinion out there about, well, we should really be protecting our existing resources and existing businesses and existing homes. There's a argument to be made that that's part of these vision statements. I think it would provide some reasonable grounds, no matter what your perspective is on where the community is going, that you could tie it back to a component of one of these vision statements.
Yep.
I think
kind of what you were talking about to me. fits under the third bullet. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's, yeah, and I think, you know, going back to some staff objectives we've had over the last year around, again, what we've broadly characterized as strategic communication. I mean, I think that there's anecdotally three big topics that routinely come up. It's traffic, it's growth, and it's taxation. And so I think that we've really tried to link what the business of the council is doing, what's happening at the staff level to one of those themes. And that seems to draw some real attention. It's connecting the dots. And so I think that there's some anecdotal stuff out there, which again, growth is obviously probably the biggest one in this community over the last 3 or 4 years. That's, you know, intrinsically related to traffic. Growth has an undeniable connection to your taxation. Again, offsetting, I think by bringing on more growth on tax rolls, it has a positive impact to the rest of the taxpayer. So I think trying to connect all of these things as a strategy, I think is a great one. And I think if we're tying it back to this visioning statement and this guiding document, I think that will really help the community understand what it is the council is tasked with and why they do what they do. Because as John said, you can't stop growth. You know, you just can't when it's not within the municipality authority. So what do we do with it? And I think that really operating under that, with that understanding, I think really helps the community understand what it is that you're doing.
So the growth, in a way, can be stopped. I mean, Cape Elizabeth did it. Every time something comes up over there, the people get up and run and they put a halt to it. They say, no, we're not doing that. We're not gonna let that building go in. We don't want that. And they do it for even development in neighborhoods and stuff too. It's very rare that they don't have any development over there. They keep everything just the way it is.
There's some real limitations.
How
There's some
they do
zoning
it.
components to it. There's some
Well,
zoning
they-
components,
I
but
mean, I think that's the thing is that
And Portland and Freeport's a perfect example. You say, you know, when you get the growth, then you have more tax money coming in, but there's something about that doesn't wash. Because the highest tax places are the biggest growth. Portland has the highest taxes. Freeport, when LOB was there, and they put in all those shops and stuff, they said, oh, we're gonna have all of this business district. And we're gonna build all this and then we'll make our taxes less because we're gonna have that revenue. It didn't work out that way. The taxes still went up. I don't know why. I don't know what.
Well,
how it
but
works,
I think your point is well taken in that other towns aren't doing as good as we are. And I think part of it is because of the way we are managing it. And I think, you know, my biggest, the fact that I'm most proud of when I look at kind of what's happening in Scarborough relative to the rest of Cumberland is we have the lowest tax rate. And, you know, when you're
Mill
looking
rate.
at,
No.
yeah, mill rate, we have the
Mill rate.
lowest mill rate.
Yeah, we have the most valuable land,
Yeah, but
so we have very high taxes.
But compared to other communities though, I mean, in Cumberland County, their land value is just as much as ours. It's like $1 million
We
to,
got proud snacks. What is
Yeah.
the revenue that you collect from this? I don't understand why these people pay $7 million for a house and they're gonna have to pay $50,000-$60,000 a year in property taxes, but it's people with so much money that they don't
yeah,
pay.
they don't.
And the town is,
Mhm.
that's a huge cash cow to them, so that's what Scarborough has, and now it's spread over to Pine Point.
Mhm.
The houses on the shore of Pine Point are going for well over $1 million now.
Yeah,
And.
but we also have people out in West Scarborough.
Right,
But-
now you're back to normal.
Yeah.
Now you're back to, now
But-
you're like every other town, but
Yeah.
not, you know, Gorham, Standish, all them, they don't have that waterfront property and
Yeah.
that income.
And I think part of the reason for me anyway, objecting to the connector was it basically was just a feeder system for Portland that was designed to turn more of us into a bedroom community in Portland, which is,
Yeah.
starts to,
Mhm.
hey,
Yeah.
okay, I want to put a bow in this.
Yeah.
No, this is a great conversation, and I think, Liam, I want to help me, I may call you tomorrow, and help me in all this, because I'm not going to. I've just made some basic notes, but to summarize that Councilor Corner in the paper will be organized around 5 vision statements that we will find topics either suggested from us or volunteered within each of those. And we'll try to focus on that And, you know, one question really, a reasonable question, which gets at some of what you say, is are we living up to these visions? Or are these visions still relevant? I mean, I think, you know, so I think there's plenty in there for us to do. And I want to come back to the big themes in each of these are, as you say, growth, taxes, what's the third one?
Traffic.
Growth, taxes, traffic, and I would also say conservation. And sometimes those things are right at odds with each other. I know, so, okay. I summarized that
You did.
correctly?
Sure.
So,
To your point, like April's doing the December 15th one, but she's doing it on whatever topic. Does somebody want to just, like, are you willing to do January 1st, just so that we can have somebody ready to go? In case we don't advance this, because we do need to make sure somebody's ready to go.
yeah. Allison, I started to do a spreadsheet with the dates. Would you mind? Because I'm lousy at this, would you just mind sending me for Council and Corner only the submission date and the publication
Yes,
date?
I'll do that.
I will
Council Corner
try to
only.
organize that
Mhm.
in, and I will put myself in whatever slot is after April.
Okay.
Not the month, the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
All right,
Cool, that works.
okay, good. Next. Only one other point that I wanted to make there, and that is that it seems to me. So I'm thinking about Council and Corner Live, and I think that we should stay flexible there. Because those forums, I think, put us in a position where we can be more reactive and engaged, so.
Yep.
I'm gonna take that, just retract that. Communication Committee Goals 24-25. And.
This page.
This is, yeah, this is from. We have that one. This is so. So this past year, I think we actually did some of this. The town will develop a community communication engagement plan, establish objective strategies and metrics for each of the goals, and we now have a communications manual, and I think a shift in the way in which we are communicating. And we have a document that supports that. So I think that my view is that, John, you had said that, you know, you were okay with having the summit with committees and so forth at the end, because you could solicit input from the committees as to what our communications goals should be. And I felt last time that the communication goals as stated, I can't even remember what they were. And my preference would be to find something that is straightforward and simple and memorable that is going to guide us in the coming year. And
In terms of a goal for this committee, or just for communications overall with the public?
well, I think that for this, I would sort of see what I would hope is that we would determine a goal which the council would adopt, and
Mhm.
we would become the vehicle for achieving.
Yeah.
That
Great.
makes sense. Okay. And so essentially, the goals that we're looking for here are something that we think could be adopted in our goal setting and would become our marching orders
Mhm.
for the year.
Yeah.
And so, Scott, when I started last year, I had high hopes that we might be able to increase community engagement, get more people in the room and so forth. But, I discovered that the best way to do that, says plainly, it's to irritate people and threaten with something. Hey, if you wanna get them in the room, you wanna get them in the room, then you gotta promise that you gotta make them think you're gonna take something away or cost them more money, and then they show up.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily the best community.
Yeah, right.
So my idealistic reads were clipped early on.
There's probably a relationship between engagement and satisfaction.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it
Yeah.
goes back to that story I tell about the kid who didn't have anything to say until he was 15 years old, and then he spit his soup out one night. So I said, why haven't you spoken all these years? And he said, everything's been great until now. And I think there's, there's something to be said for that, is people don't engage until things, but, so I didn't come with any preconceived ideas of what we should be attempting to communicate.
Just a reflection that I've had from the past year and how we've operated. We've had this as an output, but as far as process, I've noticed a shift in, that each month it's been helpful for me to know what the council is working on or have on their meetings, and then be able to talk about it and like break out what the messages are, what I've been putting out, and then hear your perspectives. Like, this is a good, outlet for like the staff and council relationship and hearing your perspective, and then how I can bring that into newsletters and social posts and the website, so.
Well, to your point, I think that one goal that we could pick, I think we're doing, we started off strong, and kudos to you guys. I think that through these discussions and the like, we've taken it up a notch in terms of the quality, and not so, I won't say that the organization and the focus of the stuff. I wonder in the plan, your plan, you talk about the metrics, newsletter hits, attendance and so forth, which is attendance at council forums, feedback. I wonder if a good goal for this committee would just be really focusing on identifying and amplifying strategies to engage people and inform people, and look at how we can see some measurable result from that. That's kind of, if we did that one thing, we just said, we've found the secret sauce for getting people to be able to say, I am aware of certain things. I have feelings about it. I think this soup is okay, but I know what's in it. That's a messy way of saying it, but and that's to me different than saying we at least we want to increase engagement in the following areas. I think, yeah, and that comes back to what you guys will talk about. My goodness, is it 6:17 already?
Yeah.
Okay.
So say again what the goal would be?
Well, the goal would be to identify and perfect communication strategies that measurably increase the public's engagement and understanding of critical issues in the town.
Mhm.
Did you get all that? Because I will forget it. I won't be able to.
It's good, it's recorded, so.
Oh. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Roger, if you're listening out there, am I speaking loud enough for every meeting? It's a feedback.
I think that's,
But we have a town newsletter
Mhm.
that goes out, and that is like a flyer is just online.
just online.
Just online. Should we put that newsletter and take a page in the leader?
Yeah, or maybe once a quarter or something, just
and
to.
Put that in the leader so that
Yeah.
it gets communicated to more people.
Mhm. I think that's a good idea.
We've actually been actively discussing for can I lead with this, or do you, we've been talking about actually sending out, maybe every 6 months, some sort of paper to mailboxes, which
Okay.
would have some look and feel like the newsletter and a lot of the content,
Mm-hmm.
as long as it's still relevant. And part of that would be to drive interest to the online version, which does come out bi-weekly and do the expense, but that's something we've been talking about for a while now and
Mhm.
hope to bring forward at some point, but that would be exactly what you're talking about, Scott. Those two
Yeah.
go into mailboxes, it'd be actually a mailer from the town.
It's a good idea.
If we were to, sorry to interrupt, if we were to take what happened for the reval and really say this was like how we communicated that, because I mean, I'm just still shocked at how like little pushback or feedback it sounds like we've gotten from the public on the reval. And I think a lot of that goes to the process and how the town communicated,
People
so,
knew what was happening.
yeah, is there like a secret sauce there that we wanna
Well,
test again?
a reevaluation, again, I tell people all the time, they say, oh, they're gonna reevaluate my house, they're gonna double the value, the value of my house. But they're gonna do it to everybody in town.
Yeah.
And then your mill rate's gonna come down. The
Mhm.
budget's gonna be the budget, they're
Yeah.
gonna spend what you're gonna, you're gonna spend what you're gonna spend. But I mean, if you do have more income, and we are doing so well, and you say we're doing this well, then maybe we should reduce the taxes and not collect as much,
Mhm.
And why do we have to say, oh, look at all this money we're collecting, let's spend it?
So,
Oh, we can spend this, we can afford this, you said, we can afford this. Well, yeah, it's like a salesman in the car, go in there and they say, well, what can you afford a month?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I can afford 10,000 a month, they're not giving you that for the car,
Scott,
you know?
to John's point, as a result of Nick's efforts, people actually got that message.
Yeah.
And they were, so you were to say, and I'm sorry, Nick, I'm only gonna take a very little bit of credit for this, but in the very beginning, when he put up that big thing, I asked him, what are you trying to achieve? And he knew, but he hadn't stated it, and he hadn't focused on it. And when the focus shifted to say, these are the outcomes that we're trying to get, it seems like such a teeny thing.
Mhm.
The rest of those strategies fell in place. So I would come back and say that what we are attempting to do is extract the elements of a successful thing. And that comes back to identifying what is the secret sauce. And I think that's an active example of
Mhm.
elements of the strategy. So I'd say, well, on those goals, there were multiple touches, there were different media used, all of those kinds of things, but so I,
did you have, I don't know, I jumped in. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No.
I think so much of it was, especially with the reval, I think so much of the time is the why. Why are we doing something? Why is this happening? The who, the what, the when, yeah, that all is important too, but it's really the why. And I think,
Mhm.
so much of, we've talked a lot over the last few years in this committee about having the community understand the decisions the council is making. Because it's the why. Why are you doing this?
write that one down. The community will, they say, they don't have to agree, but they at least understand our take.
It's kind of like a corporation,
Mhm.
if somebody doesn't perform well. The executive doesn't want to know why, he just knows they didn't and they're fired.
Yeah.
And with the council, if you don't do well, then, so basically, really with the council, the only goal is to reduce taxes. And if you reduce taxes, people don't care what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
They really will.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, you're doing good, you're doing good. So that's the end result. That's the end result right there. If you're reducing taxes and you're cutting spending and not taking their money out of there, like you said, storing them up.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be fine.
So long as you're not like taking away the
So,
quality of the services that they're getting.
Oh,
If
well,
they're-
and there's the other thing, they do want, well, that's the thing about people, is they don't wanna pay taxes, but they want all the services they can get.
Yeah.
And there's, cost to benefit ratio, I always do.
Mhm.
The trash pickup we have with the cans there, it's expensive, I'm sure it's expensive, but boy, it's convenient.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very convenient. You just have the recycle can, the trash can. It's so much better than it ever was. And you just put them out, they come and take it. And I know that we're paying a big chunk of money for that, but it's cost to benefit ratio, you know?
There you go.
That was,
Okay.
Don,
we
your,
got,
the why you liked. Again, was last year we did have a goal of improve council town communications to enhance understanding and council decisions.
think we
But
should-
maybe that didn't go far enough in terms of,
Well, I think it never rolled itself into a strategy. I think there were other things, so I have no problem picking that one up again. And
my only suggestion. For goals for communications too. And it's probably more like. After. The school. Decision has been brought to us by the committee in terms of their recommendation. Is that. That's where we like really need to focus on communicating. And partnering with the school on the communications around the school, because to your point, Scott. That is gonna go on the ballot, and I think we have a duty to make sure. Everybody understands as much as they can before they make their vote. And because it's gonna be probably the most expensive decision voters are gonna ever have to make. We should make sure we're communicating, or at least coordinating very closely with the committee and others to make sure that we're really supporting public awareness and understanding of whatever the solution is and what it means for taxes and like, I just would like to see us make sure that we don't lose sight that that is a big thing that's gonna happen likely this year. And so, to me.
Just common sense on that, though, to me.
Mhm.
There's no way you can build a brand new school and get rid of the 3 other schools and it's gonna be cheaper. That's one of the pitches is it will be cheaper and there's no
Yeah.
possible way. And the neighborhood schools, so I think our first thing to do, again, it should go to referendum. It shouldn't be, you have this committee. And the school board is gonna come up with a plan for our new school. They're gonna try and, and they're gonna keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until finally it passes through in a June election when
Yeah.
nobody shows up. So
So this one's
you
not gonna
need
be
to
till
go to
November.
referendum in November.
Mhm.
And you need to ask people, do you want a new school or do you want the little schools? I mean, you gotta start with that plan. You're going backwards, I think. You're going and you're spending all this effort and all these committees and all this time.
Yeah.
To come up with a strategy and try and find land, I mean, we had the land here. This is what the land was bought for, was
Well,
for
they-
schools. And
I
then they did this with it.
We did
Spent
ask
one
them,
point two million and didn't go to referendum.
we did ask them and they said no, and then we did ask them again through a survey. The committee took that survey and that's how they came up with their 4 options.
Yeah.
And now they're working to get those 4 options down to 1, still taking that public input. And it's a very open process for the public to participate and engage with. And I think at the end of the day, there will be a option that comes in June. How do we? Again, I don't think it's our. Like, this is just my personal opinion when it comes to capital projects, like, we need to make sure that the process happened fairly. But then it is ultimately up to the people to decide.
Right.
Is the solution that the process got to, that is open, transparent, public. The right solution for our community? If the answer is no, then the answer is no, and then we.
Right.
Learn
But
and
that's
say, well, what do
happens.
we
Not
do
everybody
differently?
Goes to those.
I
companies, not
gotta call
everybody
time, I
goes.
gotta call time out here, because it looks like I'm gonna go over. Is the second Wednesday of the month at this time okay for people?
Mhm.
You come at this time? Like, a little bit.
Yeah.
Second Wednesday of the month.
It will be done by 7 o'clock or something.
Mhm.
No.
5:30, 6:30.
I'm hoping we're gonna be done in a minute and a half.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
although that gives a little short shrift to you guys, so I think you had some updates. I just wanna
Yeah, I
give
can-
you
I can
the
keep it
time,
brief.
give you the time you need to do that. And as far as future agenda items is concerned, I think we can revisit this topic next time. Put a bow on that.
I just wanted you all to be aware of the areas of focus right now that also overlap with what you're talking about. So the transportation study and the open space plan are the 2 bigger projects right now. You saw the transportation study. So now my next phase of what I'm working on is trying to dig deeper into the study and pull out key elements from it that would be of interest to people. So I'm not just regurgitating the same message about here's the study with the link and the link for the form, so. And I've worked with Angela too, but pulling out the key messages about safety, flow of traffic and mobility. That it's not just vehicles, but also bike and ped, so, that's just something that's gonna be ongoing for the next month or two.
Just quickly, if it is true, and I hope it is, next steps will be to sort of formulate, to use that info to formulate a strategy and to pick some projects and get them done to solve some problems. And so I think that wouldn't be, you have to get other inputs on that, but I think that some of the feedback that I got after the meeting, I think it was fair to say, okay, this is just preliminary stuff. But when the rubber meets the road, it's how do we take all this information, put it into a strategy and get a 2 or 3 year plan that says we're gonna fix this, fix this, fix this. So. okay,
That's why we have a transportation committee, that's like that will be
That's what
there.
they'll do, right?
Yeah.
And the budget already has an approved design funding for a project, so there will be more to talk about after
Okay.
this, yeah.
Good.
And then open space plan, the draft will be coming out next week, so that'll be another following that kind of same method as the transportation study of getting that rolled out and people aware of it. And then the other ones, just to try to get into the public light, the wetland setbacks and the mobile food vendor ordinance, because I know they're both actively in process right now. But maybe for the future, for future agendas, we can take certain topics like this and kind of break it down, and I can hear what you think for messages and just to get your perspective, if that helps me when I'm developing content.
And you're working on an app, correct?
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. So, our website, I think I've mentioned this briefly before, but our website has an app that can go with it. It's an add-on cost, but it's something that already exists. It functions with the website. It looks very much like the website, and so it wouldn't be much of a big lift on our part because it's taking what's already on the website. It's just like putting it in app form. So we did have a meeting with the website rep yesterday, and I'll share out the materials that she sent to us after, so you can see it visually.
I've shared some of my specific thoughts on that with Liam, so two of you can chat
Yeah.
about them and take it. So,
So I'm just getting a message from Kristen, who raised her hand. Apparently this meeting time's already taken. 5:30, the second Wednesday.
Yeah, the second Wednesday of the month is pretty much full at this point. 4 p.m. is appointments and negotiations, 5 is ordinance, and then 7 is zoning. So you guys would have to pick a different day. The
So-
town Zoom account can't be used.
Oh, right.
Mm.
What about, so the second Thursday is finance currently?
Mhm.
What about doing it the second Thursday at 4?
To do,
So you do finance, or you do communications from 4 to 5, and then
Mhm.
finance from 5 to 7, because you're on finance as well.
yes, can we do that? 4 o'clock?
It's pushing it, but I hopefully can, yeah.
Well, let's try it. If it works, what I'm trying to do for all of us is see.
Tuesday isn't, there's no other time, because this is a good time. I guess
Yeah.
that's why it's all.
5:30.
We could
It's
do it
5:30.
5:30 on the second Tuesday of the month, that would be fine with me.
I can't do that.
Okay,
I can only do Wednesdays, Thursdays. I can do any Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh,
but I
okay,
can't do
all right,
Tuesday.
okay, so.
Yeah, coastal waters and shellfish are second Tuesday at that time,
Yeah,
where Scott will be at.
okay,
we can't be on channel 2, Chris.
Zoom
Nope.
issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, why don't do you want to plan on the second Thursday for January and see how that goes, and if we need to move it from
Yeah,
there?
that works.
Okay, that way we have a date and time. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you, Kristen, for that. That fell off my radar.
You're
And
welcome.
even if we need to. I can check with Karen, but if we wanted to start finance and do finance 4 to 5:30, if it works better for you to come at 5:30. We could do communications after
That would be fine with me too.
Is it this date that works, or is it more the time, like, is 4
It's-
o'clock hard to
it's-
come
it's
to?
The time, I mean, you know, again, with Lobster, this time of year, I mean, later on in January, when you vote, it doesn't matter, but
Okay,
you don't get many days, and when you do, I'm gonna go right till dark.
okay,
And I ain't gonna be able to get here at 4,
okay,
you know, and through the winter, again, like I said, then it won't be an issue, I won't be doing that, but in the fall especially, I put in May, cause you may get, you know, 1, 2 days a week, the rest of the week's
Yeah.
blowing.
So-
So those days you just go right till dark.
why don't we plan for this and finance to be on Thursday, and maybe tomorrow when we meet with Karen? We can see if we can start, yeah, so that way you can come, we can start at 5:30, and that should work for you.
Alright. That's fine.
Okay, so you'll circle, we have plenty of time, we can set
Yeah.
the meeting time, okay, well.
All right, well, I was really hoping to mimic April and end exactly on time. But we don't have any more public folks out there. I don't have any at the beginning, so no more public comment, motion to adjourn,
So moved?
second. Yep. All in favor?
Great.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.